I was going to say, what is a good question?
Okay. So we are holding here in the Gemara Mesechta Megillah Daf Chav Vav Amud Beis. If you have a Gemara art scroll, it's 26b3 and middle of the second paragraph. We're dealing with a case which we learned is not so unique to back then. It also takes place even in more contemporary times, where you have a shul that is connected to a place where a dead person is, either a burial place or might have been, let's say, a shomering room. But there was always a dead person in the same in the room right next to where there was a shul, and this is in the city of Rome. And Kohanim were not able to enter shul because they were always in the vicinity and this under the same roof as a dead body. And they asked Rava what to do. And Rava said to take a very large Aron Kodesh, big enough to hold 40 sa'ah, and made out of wood, which is, since it's so large, it's considered to be a stationary object. It's not something that's moved around very often. Only for rare exceptions, for example, bringing the Aron Kodesh out to the street when you have a big communal fast, put it by the doorway between the two rooms, and that is considered, that will make it like a wall, and also there's a hollow space in between, and that is able to stop the tumah in its tracks. So if there's a hollow space, you say tumah comes to rest over there. And tumah, and the ritual impurity, which a kohen cannot be together with, will stop where this large Aron Kodesh is in between the two rooms. And that's the advice that he gave them to do. And like we saw in, you have, for example, in Hadich, where the Alter Rebbe's oil is, and we went through a tour of that yesterday on the screen. You could check up the shiur from yesterday, or we saw also in Lubavitch, where they found the new original shul next to the oil in Lubavitch, and they rebuilt it, and they removed the roof from the oil in Lubavitch, and now Kohanim can go in. So we do see that there is a shul connected to an oil. By the oil of in the oil over here, you have that same thing as well. When you walk in, there's a small outside room. Now there's a few shelves over there with tilims and minor lashons. And it has a roof. And then the oil itself does not have a roof. That small room is a shul. And then on Shabbos or other days, special days, they'll have a minyan inside of that room. Very small room, not as large as it is by the other oils of the other Rebbeim. And there's a shul connected to a place where people are buried.
You said it has no roof?
The oil itself has no roof, in order that Kohanim could go in. And in Lubavitch, they removed the roof from the oil recently. There used to be a roof and Kohanim couldn't go in, but now they made a walkway which goes above the ground, not connected, not directly on the ground, because the whole area is a graveyard. People are buried there. We don't know exactly who, where, what. The communists and the Nazis destroyed the cemetery there.
Just a question on the previous section. Once the tumah is engaged in a room, I mean, don't you have to get it out? Here there was tumah in a room, and it seems that they put this barrier in, and it prevented the tumah from spreading, but wasn't the tumah already there?
So there's different levels of tumah, right? A kohen cannot become tamei mes to avia voisa tumah. Mm-hmm. But to touch an object, like which is a sheni l'tumah, that's not really, especially in chutz la'aretz, it's not a problem for kohanim. Because nowadays all of our kohanim are touching objects, and none of the objects are tahor entirely. The only tumah they have to be in charge, be careful of, is only tumas mess.
But the question really was whether once something was tumah, whether it was tumah in the oil, whether it could be somehow eliminated, or I don't know.
Right. So all the objects which were in the ohel are now tameh, right? So they all became a rishon l'tumah. So that was not eliminated.
Okay.
That's still there, but a kohen is allowed to touch a rishon l'tumah. Right? If I took a siddur into a graveyard and then I bring it back, a kohen could use that siddur, although it's a rishon l'tumah.
Okay.
There's no prohibition. The only prohibition of a kohen is a mes atzmai, to be under the same roof, same cover as a mes. But over here, if you have something in between, the kohen is not going to be in the same covering as a mes, and therefore, even if you bring a new object to the room, the new object will not become tameh mes. There's definitely other tumas. It's tumas eretz ha'amim, a tumah which exists just for being outside of Israel, outside of Eretz Yisrael.
Wow.
So I mean, many kohanim have that. Amar le Rabbanan. So after Rava ruled, take this large Aron Kodesh, which is not being used at all, and put it by the doorway, and therefore you'll stop the tumah from entering this room. The rabbis in Rava's Beis Medrash asked them a question. Vazimnin dimitaltili, or at the last paragraph, at times, taltile. You should know that this Aron Kodesh is actually, although it's large, sometimes we move it around. Himonech Sefer Torah ilave. It's it was an all-purpose type of Aron Kodesh. And maybe they could even use Aron Kodesh to be used maybe as a bima sometime, but they would not remove the Aron Kodesh. And Rava in the beginning thought that this type of Aron Kodesh was only moved when it was empty. Before moving the Aron Kodesh, they emptied it from the Torah scrolls. Then they moved it. And since it's not moved when it has a Sefer Torah inside, so he thought to himself that if a Sefer Torah is inside, it's considered to be a vessel which is non-movable. Because the Sefer Torah is in there and we don't move it when the Sefer Torah is there. The sages are telling him, no, and this type of shul, they actually move the Aron Kodesh for whatever reasons, whatever purposes that they use Aron Kodesh, but they move it around while the Sefer Torah is inside. And the status should change. Now it should become a type of object which is moved all the time, and whether it's full or empty. So if you have a very large object which gets moved around, that does not have the status of a kli eitz asur nachas, a wooden vessel which is meant to be stationary. A car, for example, definitely could hold 40 sa. Many people could fit inside, but a car could become tameh, right? If a dead body touches a car, a wagon, it becomes tameh. Although it's very large, but it's meant to be movable. It's not a stationary object. What cannot become tameh is things that are attached to the ground. An exception would be things that are not meant to be moved. So Rava thought to himself that the fact that he thought to himself, maybe other shuls, that they would not move the Aron Kodesh when there's a Sefer Torah inside. And it makes sense. I had the opportunity to move an Aron Kodesh. It was the beginning of last year. We moved it to the second floor in the yeshiva building, and it was quite heavy. We have to move it up the steps. It's not so easy to move when you have a Sefer Torah inside, especially if you don't have an elevator to carry it.
Why did you think it was going up?
So we did, of course. Now, of course, we took the Sefer Torah out. But in this place, they kept the Sefer Torah inside. In the shul, maybe it was just within the same room. And so they were informing Rava that this is a type of object which is movable even when the Sefer Torah are inside. It's called Molei Verekam, whether it's full, or whether it's empty, and such a utensil can become tameh.
Friday Sefer Torah actually makes you feel a bit better because it's encased, in the case, and so then you have case over a case, but still, you have to be careful also too.
Correct. Yeah. Right. In general, if you're moving an Aron Kodesh, you should remove the Sefer Torah first. Just who knows what can happen. I have seen a Aron Kodesh move with a Sefer Torah inside. For example, in New York, there's a very good, wonderful organization called Mesechta. Mesechta, they help out homes which were doing Avelos or sitting Shiva, and so they lend Sefer Torah out to homes. So they have a special Aron Kodesh where the Sefer Torah is able to be very solidly inside, secure inside, and they bring the whole small tabletop Aron Kodesh with a Sefer Torah inside. Small Sefer Torah.
One time my father
To the Shiva house.
One time my father brought home a Sefer Torah, the temporary thing, and my mother was so scared she thought it was bad luck to have the Sefer Torah at home.
Yeah, you have to be careful. Yeah, I remember one time going for a Shabbaton somewhere, and we had a Sefer Torah in the back seat of the car, and it didn't feel right, having a mundane conversation or doing anything else, playing something mundane on,
Putting it in the trunk.
better than putting it in the trunk.
Putting it in the trunk is really disrespectful.
Saying that the Sefer Torah goes in the baggage, and I'm sitting here in the front.
Then, under certain circumstances, you can even sit on top of it. There's an animal, and they're afraid for robbers or whatever. You could sit on top of it.
Really?
Then I think so.
No, there is such a thing. I know. And going, for example, you're in the airport, and you have to, go to the bathroom. You take everything with you, even your tefillin bag. Better to have your tefillin bag in another, case, but you take it. If you don't, you take it with you wherever you go because you're scared of robbers. Amar Mar Zutra. How about repurposing worn out Sefer Torah? I just brought up one example, but here's a worn out Torah cover. All right, they're very well used Torah cover. Throw one example here on the screen. So says Rava, if you have a worn out Sefer Torah cover, Shabalu. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one line, I think. Amar, so he answers back, he says, if it's as you claim that they move the Aron Kodesh around, even when it's holding a Sefer Torah, so then you cannot use it to stop the Tumah. And that's a halacha, that in order to stop Tumah, you have to have actually a full stationary object. If a door is able to, and that's permanent. If there's a door that opens and closes, that doesn't help, because it's meant to be open and closed. Amar Mar Zutra says Mar Zutra, mitbachos sfarim shebalu. If you have a cover of a Sefer Torah, which became worn out over the years, and now you cannot use it anymore, you're allowed to repurpose the cover of the Sefer Torah and to use it as a burial shroud, tachrichim, which I put up one on the screen over here. It looks a little bit different than tachrichim, than the burial shrouds, than the cover of a Sefer Torah would look like. But nowadays, we're able to commercially buy these tachrichim. Then they used to use whatever. Yeah, the screen is. Tachrichim. This is Dovi last night was sitting and.
What did they use to make them?
I mean, it's best to be made out of linen, but it says a cover of a Sefer Torah, which was worn out. You could use it for a mes mitzvah, someone who doesn't have any relatives to take care of their burial. So now the community is going to have to pay for them. So you could use a worn out Sefer Torah cover to make tachrichim, to make burial shrouds. And since, like we learned earlier, we have to take the cover of a Sefer Torah. You can't throw it out. It's not like schach. It's actually used for Hashem's name, for Sefer Torah. So you have to do geniza, bury it, or put it into an attic, or put it away somewhere. So the way you do geniza is by using it as tachrichim, as burial shrouds for someone who cannot afford it. We have two schools of thought in the Rishonim, or not the Rishonim, more the Poskim, the Achronim. The poskim and what you could apply from this. If something is no longer usable, and now we have to put into geniza, put into shemus, is it better to put into shemus as is, or should we try repurposing it in some way for another use, even if the other use is not as holy? So you have a Sefer Torah itself. And then you have tachrichim, burial shrouds. So the Taz says that burying somebody, burial shrouds, are not as holy of a use as covering a Sefer Torah. And therefore, he says, you're allowed, from here we see that if you're something which is not usable anymore, You're allowed to sort of give it a second life, even if it's on a lesser level of kedusha, a lesser level of sanctity. The Pri Megadim asks on him. We just learned yesterday. We learned about a Aron Kodesh which broke apart, fell apart. You're not allowed to repurpose the wood of the Aron Kodesh as a bima. So if you're not allowed to do that, for sure you can't repurpose it.
And also, when it was a covering of a Sefer Torah, it was covered something with life, and now you're going to use it to cover something from death. No.
Mm-hmm.
No?
Correct. So, however, other Mefarshim, the Torah, they bring very differently. And Chaim Sefer was asked such a question, and there's Gemara in Mesechta Ma'ikatan. Mesechta Ma'ikatan is the halachas of Chalamoid, but the very large part of the Mesechta talks about din of Avelos, those who pass away, and the Tara. And it says that when any person who's on the scene, who is present at the time of a soul's departure, when a Jewish person passes away, you have to tear kir, you have to rend your garments. A child has to rend their garments even if they're not present. But anybody who's present have to tear their garments. Tanya, because we learned in a brisa, this is Mesechta Marikata Daf Chafei Amar Aleph. Chayav l'kraya. If someone is standing over a deceased person at the time that they pass away, they have to tear their clothes. The Maza Doime, what is this similar to? The Sefer Torah shenisraf, a Sefer Torah which burned. And yesterday we saw a short clip. Recently, it was Levaya, a funeral for 3 Sefer Torah that were in a shul that burned down. So it's similar to Sefer Torah which burned. Shechayav the kraya, which were obligated to tear kriya, to tear clothes for it. And every single Jew is compared to a Sefer Torah, not just a tzaddik. So we know the story of the Alter Rebbe when he was one time. This is when he was still a student of the Magid, but he was walking around from town to town incognito. And as he's coming towards the city where the Shpala Zeder lived, I'm assuming it was the city of Shpala, but maybe not. So he came, and he's coming towards the city of Shpala. Long before he came, the Shpala Zeder walked into his Beis Medrash, and he told everyone there, you have to clean the Beis Medrash. We're having a very, very special event going to take place today. So they started cleaning, and he went back to his room. An hour later, he comes out and he points out there's a speck of dust over here. It's not cleaned enough. And they cleaned even more, and the place was shining. And he comes back an hour later. And he says, "Nope, not clean enough." And afterwards, he told everybody, "Go home, get into your Shabbos clothes. We're going to have a very special event taking place." And so they're all waiting. They all come back. They're wearing their Shabbos clothes, and as they're waiting. And waiting, and the stranger walks into the shul. And as soon as he comes, the Shpala Zeder comes over to him and he gives him a hug. And he took off his own gartel and he started wrapping it around the guest. And his students, Talmidim asked him, what is this? What's a big event? He said, this is a big event. This is a walking Sefer Torah. It was Alter Rebbe was coming. He knew from Ruach HaKodesh that the Alter Rebbe is coming. And he says, we're all going to greet the Sefer Torah. So tzaddikim are compared to a Torah. But we see from this Gemara that every single Jew is compared to a Torah. And it says, Amech kulam tzaddikim, every single Jew is a tzaddik. So a cover of a Torah, after a person passes away, so then they could cover up another Sefer Torah with it. So if a Sefer Torah cover is now worn out, so if it's be used as tachrichim, as burial shrouds for someone who passed away, so then you're covering another Sefer Torah with it. So you're repurposing it for the same use, and you're doing geniza at the same time. So you that's the rationale. Some Sefer writes why you're able to use a cover of a Sefer Torah as tachrichim, as burial shrouds for someone who passed away. And he says many times it could be even better. Because many times the you could say there's the cover of the Sefer Torah or parechas of this could be outside the Aron Kodesh. Here, it's on the person themselves who passes away. Halacha, it's permissible to take a worn out cover of a Sefer Torah and to use it for a mess for burial shroud. According to the Chaim Sefer, it's not the motion. On the contrary, it's the same level, if not even greater. They're using it for someone who passed away. And the Minchas Yitzchak was more of a contemporary posek. Says that there are situations which he himself was aware of that they actually did such a thing. I don't know of anything similar to that today. Maybe today it's just simpler and easier just to order tachrichim. There aren't too many places which sell their own tachrichim. Back in those days, before they're able to commercially buy tachrichim, perhaps that's what they would do. Perhaps they would just repurpose whatever material they could find, and therefore they would use a Sefer Torah cover which is no longer usable. Today and tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, we'll learn Al Shulchan Aruch. But next week, I'd like to go to a maimer of the Rebbe Rashab, a very famous maimer called V'yadaita Moskva, one of his most well-known and basic mamarim. And we're going to have English and Hebrew translations for the entire maimer. And you could say it's the knowledge of Hashem. And we'll do that in Mirz Hashem. It's not a long maimer, but we'll do that next week for the second half. For today, we're going to go to Kitzer Shulchan Aruch. Yesterday, we skipped ahead. We went to Halacha Vav, Halacha 6, talking about the idea of it's a mitzvah to bake your own challah for Shabbos. Several reasons were given. The first reason was a reason given by the Medrash in Gemara that Hashem made an entire creation, an entire being, an entire world, and he took challah for himself. He took the best part for himself, which is he made Adam the first man. And Adam, he was supposed to live forever, but the Chava, his wife, gave him to eat from the tree of knowledge. So Chava took away the challah from Hashem. If challah becomes tamei, impure, so then it has to be. You can't use it anymore. A kohen cannot eat it anymore, which is why today we don't give our challah to the kohen. We take a small piece and we burn it because it has no use. So therefore, the women were given the mitzvah to bake their own challah. In addition, back until pretty much modern era, meaning 20th century, it was common all over our entire length of our galus that Jews would buy paspalter. They would buy bread from a non-Jewish bakery. There was no hashgacha, no Vada Pittsburgh, no chavke to give hashgacha on it, and it was not pas Yisrael, because that's what was available back then, and they weren't mixing in any non-kosher ingredients. They weren't, getting oil and shortening and all the other things that are added on today to the breads. And that was, in effect, I was reading about a certain Chabad family after they escaped from Russia, and they came on a boat to America, and they get onto the boat, and one of them happened to walk into the kitchen for some reason, and they saw that they're baking bread on the boat, on the ship, and they're putting non-kosher ingredients in the boat, and they almost fainted. Because until then, they were eating bread from everywhere. This whole concept didn't exist to them. But since it was very common that people would not eat pas Yisrael during the week, so on Shabbos, they will be careful to eat pas Yisrael. So that's why it's also important to bake many people bake their challah at home. Challah, the amount is 1 out of 50, 1/50th. Meaning 2 out of 100, which is 1/50th. Hashem created the world for 6,000 years. Challah, the Torah gives us a mitzvah of challah, uses the word reishis arisosechem. The beginning of your dough you give to the kohen. About Moshe Rabbeinu it says, Vayar reishis lo, Hashem saw the beginning was for him. Uses the word reishis about Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is the challah of the world. Now, if the world lasts for 6,000 years, 1/50th equals 1/50th of 6,000 is
50th. So it would be 1,200.
almost that'll be 1/5.
Oh yes, it would be
Just take off 1 0, you'll get
120.
Exactly, 120. So Moshe Rabbeinu, he said, is the chala of the world. Okay, he is 1/50th of the 6,000-year cycle. He lived to be 120 years. He's a truma of the world. So there's a lot of special things that happen, special things when you take challah, and therefore it's a mitzvah to take challah. Many people have not many, some people today have a custom to bake 12 challahs, corresponding to the 12 loaves of bread that were on the shulchan, on the showbread in the table in the Beis HaMikdash. We're up to halacha gimel. Now we're going backwards a little bit in chapter 72 of Kisur Shulchan Aruch. Lefikach mishabeach hanavi. Going back to this, saying how important it is to honor Shabbos. First, we said not to desecrate Shabbos, not to make Shabbos feel uncomfortable. Someone who transgresses Shabbos and does it in a spiteful way is not considered to be Jewish in regards to many, many things. They're still Jewish. You can still their marriages are valid if they transgress Shabbos, not in a spiteful way, but because out of convenience, and that you don't have all those issues. But still, we're careful in regards to certain aspects. We wouldn't trust him to be a shochet, etc. The Navi says in Nehemiah, Ashrei enish yasa zois uven adam yachzik ba shomer Shabbos mechalaloi v'shem yadam says Torah. Praiseworthy is those who guard Shabbos and who does not desecrate the Shabbos. Somebody who honors Shabbos and someone who makes Shabbos beautiful as much as they can. He will be rewarded in this world and in the world to come. In the world to come, they'll be amply rewarded as well. As it says, if you sit around on Shabbos and do nothing, and you do not do your own needs on the day, my holy day, and you then not just stay away of not doing anything forbidden on Shabbos, but next step, you make Shabbos einig, make it a pleasurable day, make it an enjoyable day. As I heard from Rabbi Tzvi once, he says that they used to say in Lower East Side, it would be very common that people will be fired for not coming to shul on Shabbos, not coming to work on Shabbos. Imagine being fired for not coming to shul on Shabbos. And they would say, "Oy, shver to zayin a yid. Oy, it's difficult to be a Jew." Einig means Shabbos is enjoyable. Kodesh Hashem mechubad, and to give honor to the Shabbos. And you don't talk about the news, you don't talk about your needs. You promised you will have pleasure, delight with Hashem. In the future, Hashem will bring you to the highest peaks. And you will be able to see and to hear Hashem himself reveal himself to you. So it's very important to honor Shabbos. Now, Chassidus explains that there's two types of Shabbos, really three types of Shabbos. It says, "As Shabbosaisai tishmodu," you should guard my Shabboses. Why does it say Shabbosaisai? Chassidus explains there's two types of Shabbos. There's Shabbos, which is Kaima, which is a day on the calendar, comes by itself whether you brought it on or not. And then there's a greater level of Shabbos, which you bring the Shabbos, you make a Shabbos. Like it says, "V'shamu b'nei Yisrael as Shabbos." Jewish people should guard Shabbos. What's the next words? Lasos as a Shabbos, to make Shabbos, to do Shabbos. We have to make Shabbos. Shabbos itself is such a great day, but we can discover and bring up a much greater kedusha and holiness and sanctity in Shabbos, which by itself it would not have. That happens by making Kiddush, but it also happens. You learn Ma'amer Chassidus on Shabbos morning. You daven more at length with more kavana. And then afterwards, you entire day of Shabbos you dedicate it to, you uplift it, and that's making Shabbos lasis, bringing kedusha into Shabbos itself. And that's what a lot what Chassidus teaches us, and you're learning what happens, the greatness in Shabbos. And you have Aliyah Sa'olamas, the worlds come up and start understanding why we say this is a meal of Atika Kadisha and this is a meal of Zer Anpin, etc. And then you realize how greatness of Shabbos. The Rebbe of Shabbos is a very beautiful mimer about this in the year before he passed away. Teres and Shabbos Kedoshim, this week's parsha. We're talking about this entire topic. What does it mean to make Shabbos and to make a Shabbos holy and special as opposed to a day which is just a day on the calendar? It says you have to remember Shabbos and make it holy. So we remember Shabbos every day at the end of davening, or while we put on Rabbeinu Tam. We say the 6 remembrances, and we mention Shabbos. So that's bedibur, but we also have to do maaseh, action, do something for an action every single day. Every single day, you should remember Shabbos and do something to get ready for Shabbos. If you find you go to the store and you see something nice in the store that's for sale and it's not there all the time, and it's not going to go bad until Shabbos, you should buy it and keep it for Shabbos. You're able to buy even before davening. The Alter Rebbe says if it's not going to be around after davening, and you should say Kriya Shema before going to the store to buy. And you shouldn't miss davening with a minyan to buy food for Shabbos, because it's more important to daven with a minyan than to make sure to get the best food for Shabbos. How do what?
Better to daven with the minyan
Than to go, than to get the best food for Shabbos. The story of Shammai, which is that he would go to the store on Sunday, and he would see a very fat calf, and he would say, "I'm going to buy this for Shabbos," and he would buy it and bring it home. And then he would go pass by on Monday, and he would see even a better calf, and he would say, "I'm going to buy this one for Shabbos." And then he would go home and he says, "We have an extra calf. Let's use it. Let's shecht it and eat it for our meal today. And then we'll have the better one for Shabbos." And then every day of the week you would go and you find the better calf. And it says that Shammai ate the entire week. The whole week he ate for Shabbos. Some of us eat the whole week Shabbos leftovers. He was eating for Shabbos in advance. They say my grandmother always served leftovers. We never found the original meal.
Again, how to tie with the davening?
So he says, so can you go to the store? So for example, a calf, right? It's first come, first serve. If you're going to Shul to daven, you might miss opportunity to get what's out there in the market.
It's not in the Shabbos davening.
A weekday davening, yeah.
Okay.
He's talking about during the week.
I got it. Thank you.
Now, who here is a last minute type of person?
I qualify.
Most of us qualify. So don't worry, you're in good company. It says because Toiv Yoser Liknes Ve'erev Shabbos L'Kavet Shabbos Mikos B'Yom Chamishi. Better to go shopping on Friday for Shabbos than to go shopping on Thursday. That's what the Shalach and Shulchan Aruch is. But this is, I think, before the days of refrigeration. Better to go shopping closer to Shabbos so the food should taste better, should be more fresh. When could you buy in advance? When are you allowed to be going on Thursday? Something which needs prep. Like if it has to sit overnight, and stew overnight. And then this is brought down. Many tzaddikim would do it, that every single thing they would buy, they would say, this is L'Kuvat Shabbos. This is, I'm buying this in honor of Shabbos. This is in honor of Shabbos. Ezra said that you should wash your clothes on Thursday in order to have it ready for Shabbos. But don't wash it on Friday. Washing your clothes back then was a full day experience, and it took a lot of effort to do. And you shouldn't do it on Friday. Friday should be dedicated toward getting ready for Shabbos. It shouldn't be dedicated for anything else. This brought down several tzaddikim, several great people. They would, every single thing they would buy, they would prepare, they would say during the week, they would say, Zeh Lekavet Shabbos. Mordechai of Nechshitz, you say that the Chayzel of Lublin would always make sure that in his house they should sharpen the knives on Erev Shabbos, for Shabbos. And he said there's a reason for it. He says there's a skula for Parnasa. He says because there's a malach which is in charge of Parnasa called Chatach. That's the name of the malach. It's brought down on Rosh Hashanah during Tkiyos. And it says, Poseach es yadecha. Hashem, open your hand and fulfill the needs, the desires of every living being, which is for Parnasa. And the last letter of Poseach is a ches. The last letter of es is a taf. The last letter of yadecha is a chaf. And so that Poseach es yadecha makes up the word chatach, and it's a skula for Parnasa. And knives are chosech, which are cutting things which cut.
I've been doing that for a long time, but I heard it was for shalom bias too.
Shalom bias? It probably works for shalom bias, I'm
If
assuming.
they could be sharp, they wouldn't have a problem cutting whatever. But it's good, either way, but that's for shalom bias.
Yeah, it says it's good for Parnasa. Some people have a minute to also break challah on Erev Shabbos on Friday, and to break it up into multiple loaves. And he says it's for the same idea. It comes from the word chosech.
Did you say anything about a haircut, cutting
Hey, what?
nails?
Cutting your nails in here. Yeah, we'll get to that soon. More things what you do on Erev Shabbos, but you're supposed to cut your hair and your nails on Erev Shabbos. If you do it every Friday, then you're allowed to do it even on Chol Hamoed. You'll be allowed to do it. There'll be certain people which would cut a small amount of hair on every single Friday. Reb Hershel Rebbe Nover. It says, he brings down, it says on this halacha, it says you should, whenever you buy something during the week, say you should verbalize that I'm buying it for Shabbos. And he brings a proof from the Torah. It says, when the man came down on Friday, it came down a double portion. So the Jews came to Moshe Rabbeinu and asked why the double portion fall down. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, this is the bread Hashem gave it to you. Eat it today because it is Shabbos today. Bring the Kedusha of Shabbos into the Yom Yom. Yom Yom means into your day-to-day life. Every single day you should have the Kedusha of Shabbos. Rebbe Elimelech of Lizensk, on Friday afternoon, he says he would close his ears. And he says, because there's so much tumult, a rash, there's so much excitement going on in Shemayim, in heaven at the time, and he's able to hear all of it, and all the announcements that are going on in Shemayim at the time, and it would physically disturb him from all of that noise. Hashem said, Yeshli oitzer beves gnazai. I have a certain treasure in my safe, which I have never given to anybody, and its name is Shabbos. And now I'm giving it to the Jewish people. And Hashem let us know a little bit about the Kedusha of Shabbos. So Reb Shmelka of Nikolsburg, also, I'm sure is related to you somehow. Reb Shmelka of Nikolsburg, who was a great, the Rav of Nikolsburg, but he was one of the Talmidim of the Maggid of Mezrich, Reb Shmuel Shmelka. So he gave a mashal on this. He says, one time, and later on they found out the story happened with him. One time there was his wife, a poor person came to the door asking for money, and he had no money in the house. He was looking around, what could he give to the poor person? So he went into his bedroom dresser and he found his wife's ring that she had, and he went and he took it and he gave it to the poor person, and he says, take it, you sell it, you could probably get some money. Now his wife came home, looked for, where's my ring? And he said, I just gave it away. She got so upset at him and says, don't you know this is worth 3 gulden? It's worth a big amount of money. So he says, hold on. He ran after the poor person who already walked away and was already a little bit further away. He says, make sure when you sell it, don't sell it for less than 3 gulden. It's worth a lot of money. So in a similar way, Hashem says, I have an immense treasure in my storage houses. It's called Shabbos. But Hashem could give us Shabbos and we have no idea what it is. So Hashem lets us know a little bit the greatness of Shabbos. We'll, as I conclude with just a short story of the Ruzhiner. We saw of Ruzhin. When he was a child, he was in Cheder and he was learning with his Melamed. He was learning Mishnayos, and they learned what to do if a person gets lost in the desert and they don't know what day Shabbos is. Shabbos is what should they do for Shabbos? Which is from whatever day you think is Shabbos, you keep it, and every 7th day from there you keep a full Shabbos, and every other day you can only do the amount of malacha that's needed to survive. So he asked his teacher, how is it possible that a person doesn't know what day Shabbos is? So the teacher tells him, because we're talking about a person who got lost. Imagine you're in the forest. I understand you're never in a desert. In the forest and got lost. And he explains the whole thing over again, and he asked him again. And the teacher at this point lost his patience and lost his school. And he picked him up and he gave him a few good zets, what it used to be back then. And then he schlepped him to the Ruzhiner's father. And he says, your son is disturbing, or Cheder is asking pointless questions. And you have to give a good lesson to your son. And so, he started crying, the young boy, and he said to his father, but I wasn't doing anything wrong. So he says, he was asking, how could a person, not know what day Shabbos is? And I explained to him a few times. So the father turned to the son and he said, is that true? He said, yeah, but we could always know what day Shabbos is because you just look up at the heavens as a Shemayim, and the whole heavens looks different. So the father of the Ruzhiner let the Melamed go, and then he told him, you can't publicize everything that you know and everything that you see. You're not allowed to publicize. You have to, some things you have to keep secret. But the idea of Shabbos is a very special day, and to be able to tap into it, it's not for nothing that in the back of Tehillim, there's a story about Yisrael Ruzhin, that Tzemach Tzedek sent a message, a big chassid of Isaac Hamler to him, and on Erev Shabbos, he would doing melacha already on by Chatzos, midday, on Erev Shabbos, and he was smoking a pipe, and Rabbi Isaac Hamler was speaking to the Ruzhiner, and as soon as his misharis, his attendant, walked in and told the Ruzhiner, now it's Chatzos, it's midday, he says he put down, he stopped using it because he was stopped doing malacha at that point. And Rabbi Isaac Hamler, who says was almost a half a Rebbe, and he says suddenly I could see that he went up and he left me down. Yisrael Ruzhiner elevated himself, went to the highest worlds, and he left me down here. There's somebody who could appreciate the Kedusha of Shabbos. So that's something we could take from today. And with that, we will